Back in 1953, I was 15 years old, and I went to work that summer at a fishing town called Westport, Washington. And I lived with the Finns and fished with the Finns. And I'd only been working there a couple of weeks, and I had an interesting incident happen that has stuck in my memory all my life. I was a pooker on the fish boat, which meant I got up at 2:30 in the morning. We went down to the docks, and I was a guy that opened the boat, warmed up the engines, checked the oil, checked the water, checked the bait, while the captain was up having breakfast at Sourdough Lil's. So this one morning, I saw this old man come stumbling down the dock on two canes. Came up and he talked to me in Finn. He said, "Hyvä päivä, mitukulu." He was Pappa Kari. Well, I knew I was fishing on Pappa Kari's boat, and I'd heard of Pappa Kari. He was a legend, but this was the first time I'd ever met him. Well, by then he was quite an old man, and so we talked in Finn for a while. Then he asked me to help him aboard his boat because he needed to feel the sea again. Well, I said, "I don't know, I don't have permission." And just then his grandson, whose name was Fella Boy, came running down the dock, making a lot of noise. So Fella Boy came up to his grandpa, drove him home and put him to bed. Then he came back, Fella Boy came back to me. He and I were fishing together that day. And he made me promise never, ever to let Pappa Kari on his boat. And here's why. Some men must follow the sea, some men can stay on the land. Their choices were made before they were born. They all do the best that they can. If you work on the land, you know where you stand. You work, you earn, and you slave. But those brave men who work on the sea, they work with one foot in the grave. I watched the old man stumble along, his two canes led the way. He walked to the dock and he came to the rail, saying, "How are you today?" He spoke in Finn and I understood. I was standing on his boat. And here was a man who knew the sea like no one else afloat. Here's to those that are dead and gone, those men that follow the sea. Their ranks are thin, but they do it again, those Finns that follow the sea, my boys, those Finns that follow the sea. He said, "My father died at sea, my father's father did too. I fished these waters, my time is short, and I know what I must do." He asked me to help him climb the rail, so on his deck he could stand. I need to feel the sea again, I must not die on the land. Here's to those that are dead and gone, those men that follow the sea. Their ranks are thin, but they do it again, those Finns that follow the sea, my boys, those Finns that follow the sea. He'd survived the storm of 36, while 16 others had died. He'd led his friends through the pounding surf, those 5 that did survive. But now his years had crippled him, he knew his time was near. He begged me to help him cross the bar, and I could see that he had no fear. Pappa Kari saw his end, just as his fathers had done. Those left behind couldn't understand that with his death he'd won. He needed to see his fathers again, they had showed him the way. And his freedom came in his own way, as he went to the water to stay. Here's to those that are dead and gone, those men that follow the sea. Their ranks are thin, but they do it again, those Finns that follow the sea, my boys, those Finns that follow the sea.